Hello, Dr. Francisca Anene here, and you're welcome to PPL324 Law of Thought 2. I'm sure you have enjoyed our previous lessons and you have enjoyed watching the instructional videos. And beyond enjoying, I hope that you have learned something. In fact, a lot of things. So, we're going to be learning something new again in this video. We're going to be taking another important topic in Law of Thoughts. And as usual, I'm counting on you to pay attention, to take notes if you have to take part in the activities, think about what you will hear, and try and learn whatever lessons are available to be learned. Okay, so let's go. So this is our fourth lesson, and in this lesson, we'll be learning about defamation. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to define defamation, discuss the elements of defamation and the types of defamation. You should also be able to distinguish between libel and slander. What is defamation? Defamation is the publication of a statement that tends to lower a person in the estimation of right-thinking members of the society generally, or which tends to make them shun or avoid that person. Take note of particular words that we have highlighted in red. Those words will form the or constitute the elements of defamation. So let's look at some of them. First is publication. Now, when we say publication, note that it may be verbal or it may be written. However, for there to be publication, it must be published. That is, whether verbal or written, it must be shared with a third party. And then when you talk about a person, the victim of defamation, it may either be a human person or a corporate person. So companies and other corporate persons can be plaintiffs in a claim for defamation. Then damage may be intentional or unintentional. It doesn't matter. Intent does not matter. However, where a party does not have a reputation, a good reputation, he cannot begin to talk about loss of that reputation. So now to right-thinking members of the society. Who are right-thinking members of the society? The standard for determining who a right-thinking member of the society is the court. It's the court that determines the standard. And note that it is an objective test. So it should not be people who normally would disregard any publication, no matter how scandalous, or people who will regard every trivial word or um, publication as damaging to reputation. It should also not be people who are so suspicious or so well versed, in rules of construction that they become sensitive in every way. So a lawyer, in the context of defamation, a lawyer will not qualify as a right-thinking member of the society. Now to your first activity. I'd like you to identify the elements of the thought of defamation. Just take a few seconds and think about it. So let's now talk about the types of defamation. There are two types. You have libel and you have slander. Libel is a defamatory statement in visible, permanent form. Note the words visible and permanent. And so they say libel is addressed to the eye. So things like newspaper publications, letters, books, paintings, and so on are permanent. They can't just be done away with. They will be there for a long time and will be viewed by, lots and lots of people. So any defamatory statement put in such media will be deemed to be libel, right? An exception to this point, remember we said libel is addressed to the eye. However, defamatory words in radio broadcasts, audio recordings, and so on, even though they are not in, they are published but not published in visible form, they are deemed to be libel. They are also classed as libel. So though you may not be able to read them like you would read a newspaper, right? they are classed as libel because they are in permanent form. So you can keep an audio recording, it will be there for a long time, can be read over and listened to over and over again. So for that purpose, because of the permanence, it is libel. Also note that there's what we call criminal libel. That is where a libelous publication now tends, to result in a breach of peace. So insightful statements and all of that made on the pages of newspapers or even social media will, can be classed as criminal libel. And for this one, for this such an issue, the state will have the right to arrest and prosecute the the person who published such statements for the crime of criminal libel. On that point, you can see the case of Arrow and Weeks. And then to the second type of defamation, slander. Slander is a statement made in transitory form. Note the word transitory. It is not permanent, it is transitory. So it's usually made through spoken words or gestures, and it is mainly addressed to the ear, as against libel that is addressed, said to be addressed to the eye. Now, slander is not actionable per se. Libel is actionable per se. What do we mean by being actionable per se? You cannot, it must be specifically pleaded and proven in evidence. It's not just taking that defamation has occurred simply because words are said to have been spoken. On that, you can see Okpara and Ume and Yesufu and Badam. Now, note that rule that slander is not actionable by per se has exceptions. So, where a slanderous statement imputes a crime or a contagious disease or female unchastity or a damage to a person in any office, trade, or profession, it becomes actionable per se. You don't need to prove it with evidence. You don't need to specifically plead it. So where you say, for instance, using what we are dealing with now, you say someone has COVID, or a woman you refer to her as a harlot. The issue is that such slanderous statements will result in the person being shunned, and for that purpose it becomes actionable per se. So you must note those exceptions. Okay, now let's talk about vulgar abuse. Vulgar abuse usually is made up of irritating words, annoying words, usually spoken as an insult. So you see that a lot back and forth when people are quarreling, and of course they are generally not taken to be slanderous. Okay, however, they may be actionable as slanderous statement if the plaintiff, that's the person who is being abused, is accused of having committed a specific crime, and where verbal abuse results in the person who is being abused being shunned, then it becomes actionable as slander. And the fact that it was said in jest or anger is no defense. But please note that this is a question of fact. So you can see on that point the case of Ibiano. And so we'll take our second activity before we bring this lesson to an end. Now think about it. When may a slanderous statement be actionable per se? Take some time and think about it. Okay, so in this lesson, we have learned what defamation means. We have learned what the elements of defamation are and the types of defamation, libel and slander. We have also tried to distinguish between libel and slander. Remember, we said libel is in permanent form, slander is in transitory form. Libel is actionable per se, slander is not actionable per se. Okay, as usual, you can download this video and watch it again and again. And questions, you can post it on the discussion forum, and then we will answer the questions. So before our next lesson, of course, you will have the live class as well. And I'd like to thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you at our next class.